Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on November 1st, 2020, and it's All Saints Day. We are blessed to have Connie Schaefer and Clint Brown to provide music, and I will be providing the talk and the meditation. So we'll begin with a piece of music, please.
Well, this is the month that Thanksgiving is happening, and I'm hopeful that as the month goes on, I will become more and more thankful, if you get my drift, and after Tuesday. And this is a song that's called "We Are Saying Thank You," and it's sung in the Dances of Universal Peace. And Connie will call out the different things we are thankful for, and
so you can join in.
Yeah, so you can make sure you're muted if you're singing in the background. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you is our practice.
Snowflakes.
We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you for the snowflakes.
Music.
We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you for the music.
All colors.
We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you for all colors.
The doggies.
We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you for the doggies.
This moment.
We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. We are saying thank you. Thank you for this moment.
Thank you, Clint and Connie. It's at this time that we go into prayer by taking a breath together. This is a prayer of invocation. God, our maker, immensity of love, eternity of mercy. We give you thanks that you are with us and in us, beside us and over us. Be as hands upon us and fashion us for shining. Be as warmth within us and extend our lives in caring. Be as strength beside us and shape our lives for healing. Summon us by name and help us to listen. Awaken us to the movement of your spirit in our lives, calling us to become more fully the people you have created us to be. In Christ's name we pray, and so it is. And we'll have some more music.
That was made into a hit by Cat Stevens, and it's from a poem by Eleanor Farjeon, and I didn't know how to pronounce this. I kept trying to give it a Latino pronunciation, Farjeon, but no, in fact it is Eleanor Farjeon, and morning has broken. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken. from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, more of the moonlight, Eden's soft play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. First one again. Morning has broken like the first morning, blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the springing, fresh from the word.
Thank you again, Connie and Clint. So it is All Saints' Day, and in the liturgical calendar, that's when we celebrate and honor those who have died, especially in the last year. And in this year, it's been especially difficult with COVID-19. So very many people have passed. Some we know and some we may not know. I think it makes sense to take a breath and honor all of those people and honor all of their bereaved loved ones. In our lifetime, we've never had this experience before of a pandemic. In addition to the pandemic, this is the time of year when it gets darker, when we get more quiet. We are finishing harvesting. And so it makes sense that we look toward death in a new and different way. Last weekend, I was on retreat, and the focus of that retreat was finding our calling in times of turmoil. And then every day this past week, Monday through Friday, I listened to between 3 and 4 interviews on the Shift Network, which was called Beyond the Veil Summit. And a lot of the focus was on near-death experience. And people were interviewed that had had near-death experiences themselves. And mediums were interviewed that had been in contact with those that had passed. And so those two things, the retreat and the summit, kind of aligned for me in bringing to my forefront of thinking, what is mine to do at this time? What is my life purpose? And I imagine a lot of you have had those kinds of thoughts recently. In 1975, Raymond Moody published his book, Life After Death. I'm sorry, Life After Life. And I read the book and I found it absolutely fascinating. And ever since then, I've been fascinated with near-death experiences. However, I always tell Spirit, I don't want one. Thank you. So I'm struck by how many similarities there are from people who report this experience. We've all heard that there is a leaving of the body and sometimes a seeing of the body, and then a going through a tunnel is often very common, a seeing a light, and then joining with the light. And those are very common experiences. The other thing that's common is the sensation or the feelings that accompany this experience, and that of such deep peace and love and an awareness of unity that there is no separation, that everyone is a part of the whole, part of one, part of the divine. There have been more reports of NDEs, near-death experiences, since the 60s. And that's because of medical ability to revive people, either during surgery or after heart attacks, etc. Another thing that people experience with the NDE is a freedom of movement. They are not encumbered by their body any longer. And one woman shared, she was from Colombia, South America, and when she was 3, she fell into a deep well. And she'd never been in a pool, she'd never been in a deep bathtub, so she didn't know you couldn't breathe underwater. And so she drowned. And part of her experience was to come out of her body, still being, having a sense of being in the water, looking at her body. She was not alarmed at all. She was only 3. What did she know? Everything is new. And she found herself in her house looking down at the maid who was watching a soap opera and paying no attention to this 3-year-old child out near the water. And then she lifted up even higher and she saw her mother walking to work. And she manifested right over her mother. And she's thinking, there's my mom. There's my mom. And her mom's facial expression changes completely. She goes into great concern and turns around and runs back home and goes immediately to the tank and pulls the daughter out. And the mom worked with children, so she knew CPR and she was able to revive her. When people come back from a near-death experience, they often say there really, truly are no words to describe it. Yet there are still similarities in the way that they do. Some people see amazing colors that do not exist on Earth. Some people see flowers and gardens. And one woman talked about all of a sudden all of these flowers blooming around her and lifting her up in spirit. They also talk about there's clearly no time or space. And again, they talk about being able to navigate just by thinking of where they want to go and they're there. Some people hear and see orbs of angelic choirs or beautiful music, celestial music. Some people are met by deceased loved ones or even throngs of people welcoming them. The thing that makes a near-death experience is every one of these people comes to a certain point in their experience where they recognize they have to come back. They have to come back, and most of them feel like their mission here is incomplete. The experience itself is generally heavenly, but coming back is not so heavenly for everyone, in part because they have completely changed. Their perception of themselves and their life has changed. Their beliefs have changed. Their values have changed. And especially in the past, people were reluctant to tell others what their experience was. And so they would feel alone and alienated. And the divorce rate for people that have had near-death experiences is very high because of that sudden change. And so when someone comes back, they have to integrate all of this new stuff, and it can take time. Once they do integrate it, they feel much more whole. They feel much more focused on what is theirs to do while they're here. Many people, when they have passed over, have the experience of seeing in a panoramic way. And in that panoramic way, they often have a life review. And some people have said that they've actually met a panel of ascended masters who are facilitating that review. And something that's very interesting about the review is that the person, the now deceased person, is asked questions about their life. Did you accomplish what you wanted to? How did this go? How did that go? And there's no judgment with the answers if the person is honest. That's all it takes, is for them to be thoughtful and honest about their life review. The other thing that's interesting, and this relates to the golden rule, which is in many, many faiths, that when people are experiencing their life review to learn how they impacted others, they're not experiencing it from their own viewpoint. They are the other person briefly experiencing how that felt. And so these people also come back with different messages. And one of the messages is how important it is to forgive, how important it is to forgive themselves and other people. And part of how they reach that transformation is by coming to a deep recognition there's really nothing to forgive. Everybody's human, people make mistakes, and those mistakes are forgivable. The other thing many of them talk about is that there is a time before you incarnate where, with or without ascended masters, you are planning your next lifetime. You are planning what is yours to do in that lifetime. And as we all know from our own experiences, when we do incarnate, we go through that veil of illusion, and we don't usually remember what that was. But it's important, according to the people with this experience, that we recognize that we had some part of figuring out what this life would be like. Another thing some of them talk about is when we incarnate, we bring a slice of our soul with us, and that is what gives us life. However, the largest part of our soul is in another realm because it has responsibilities in that realm. And the more masterful your soul is, the more evolved your soul is, the greater the responsibility. I mentioned that people come back completely altered. Sandra Ingerman, which many of you probably know, is a shaman and teaches shamanism, and she's had several near-death experiences. She also worked at hospice and worked with other people that have had near-death experiences. And she describes this woman that in her lifetime was just mean and nasty. That's just how people experienced her. That's how they thought about her. And when she was on the other side, she was healed of that nastiness. And when she came back, she was kind and loving. And her family had her committed to a psychiatric hospital because she just wasn't right. She was able to have some psychological evaluations and released. So that's an extreme example of how family or people that you come back to can respond. Many of the presenters, even those that had had NDEs, suggest that we can have some of those same experiences through meditation, that we don't have to die to wake up. Some people, when they come back, are very clear they were given messages to share with people in general or people in particular. And some of those messages are that we are all pure presence or pure love. That is our nature, that we are not alone. And they also teach us that love of self in this lifetime is essential. It is one of the things we're here to learn and to practice. They also tell us that what we focus on is critical, and we know that. So part of what they encourage us to do is catch us ourselves when we're focusing on something negative and come back to something of beauty. We're also told that what we have done in our lifetime is not essentially who we are. And one woman, she is a Black woman with a British accent. I'm not sure where she was from. She, when she had her near-death experience, she saw the Akashic records, the records that hold all experiences of all people. And she learned that at the time in the life of Jesus, the master teacher, she stood at the crucifix and yelled for his death. She also learned that in another lifetime, she was a plantation owner of slaves in Virginia. And then in the next lifetime, she was a slave. And now she is a Black woman in this time of racial unrest. So her point is that lives balance each other out. So another message that is given is karma is real. The other thing that people talked about was when we're on this side of the veil, which is a matter of perception and frequency, we can still interact with our deceased loved ones. One woman's son died, and he showed up to her a couple of days later, and she communicates with him every day, and he gives her great guidance. Another woman, her twin died, and they're in constant contact. Years ago, a woman who attended our community had a son die, and he was in touch with her and helped her figure out the trajectory of her life. And she's a psychic medium now. So I wanted to share just a couple of experiences that I've had. These are just a few. In July of 1995, my oldest daughter and I were sitting out on my brand new deck, and a big, well, a ball about this size of blue light came between us. It was going fairly fast, but slow enough to really see it. And my daughter and I looked at each other and said, "Grandpa Dave." And we looked at the time, and that was the time I learned later that my father had died. The other thing is, in July 21, 2008, my partner was on a vision quest in California. And the partner of the woman, the shaman leading the vision quest, was sitting on her deck in Washington State, Whidbey Island, with a friend, and looked up, and there were 16 geese flying overhead. And it was a little early for the geese to be flying. And they watched as one goose took off by itself. And they commented on how rare that is, because usually when one goose is going off to die, they're accompanied by one or another goose. And what struck me later when I learned of this was my partner's totem was goose. So the next morning, she woke up and had 5 minutes of misery before she died. And I got the call a couple of hours after her death because they had to bring her down from a mountain. So that night, our house was just filled with people. And my closest friend and I were sitting on the back deck, and this huge beetle, I'd never seen anything like it, came between Kathleen and I. And it's like standing here, head here, the bottom here, and it starts spinning like this and spinning and spinning and spinning. And then it flew to the screen of the kitchen window as though it wanted to go in the house. And I said, "K Beetle." because people called my partner KB. So those were a couple of experiences. The other was in 49 years ago, I had a son, Joshua. He lived 3 days and then passed. And he still remained a part of our family. We talked about him. Even my daughter, who was born after him, felt as though he was just part of the family. And there were no magical moments, but it was just a sense. Well, years later, 27 years later, I was facilitating a retreat. And I was facilitating the closing circle. We were outside in beautiful nature. And I looked across at a client of mine who was 27 years old. And right behind her stood a figure. And it was a young man with long hair. And he looked like he was dressed in some kind of buckskin outfit. And I knew it was Joshua. And he had come to say goodbye. He had come to say he was finished and he needed to move on to something else. And what was remarkable to me is that I said to those 16 women what I had just seen, and nobody discounted it. Nobody was skeptical. It was such a tender thing to be able to share. And as I'm saying 16 women, I'm reminded that what was significant about those 16 geese was there were 16 people on the vision quest. And of course, Karen took off on her own. So those are just a few experiences. And I imagine many of you have had similar experiences or known others that do. So why are we here? You know, if beyond the veil is so wonderful, why the heck are we here on this earth? It's to evolve our souls, according to some of these people on the summit. I think I've had the image that our souls are whole and perfect and just fine. And at some level they are, yet they are encouraging us to recognize that our souls are here to learn and transform and grow and to have adventures. We're also here to speak up about what is right. And during this pandemic, which some of the speakers called a spiritual experience for the world, we may be called even more fully to speak up for what is right. We're also here to learn to trust the universe, to recognize we are the universe. We are here to go beyond fear and to focus on our soul's desire. Remember, our soul knows what we are here for, so it's important to be in touch with that. We're also here to birth a new culture. I don't know about you, but I get discouraged sometimes, especially this year. And so to be reminded of what we're here to do is helpful, gives us a purpose. We're also to really pay attention to how we affect other people and to be aware of how we want to do that, to always be growing in that area of love and acceptance. So even if we've never had a near-death experience or some magical experiences, we've all probably had some out of the ordinary experiences, times where we catch our breath and something is different, something is happening around us or within us. And those are transformative. So I want to invite us to go into a meditation by taking a breath. And if you're comfortable, to close your eyes. Be in your body, this body that we have here on this earth, and be aware of your breath. And if you're willing, allow one of those experiences to come to your mind. And notice as it does come to your mind, what do you feel? What emotions does it bring up for you? What sensations might you have in your body? And I invite you at this time to become more fully aware of what wisdom you got from that experience. What did you learn and how did you transform? And with awareness of that wisdom, how are you to bring that to this time on this earth, in this body? What attribute, what divine attribute do you want to share with others? And as you continue to breathe, remember what is so important is to be you. Be you. When you're ready, very gently open your eyes, able to integrate all that you have learned. So I'd like to end this with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, one of my very, very favorite teachers. Tomorrow I will continue to be, but you will have to be very attentive to see me. I will be a flower or a leaf. I will be in these forms and I will say hello to you. If you are attentive enough, you will recognize me and you may greet me. I will be very happy. And so it is. And we'll have a piece of music, please.
So this is the song that seems to come up whenever this group gathers. Kind friends all gather round. Something I would say. What brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle which holds us all inside. We're strangers or it's family and loneliness can't hide. Give yourself to love. Love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I've walked these mountains in the rain. Learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise. See never did know how. Like sunshine on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. Give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love, give yourself to love. Love is born in fire, it's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you are ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It can be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. Give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love, give yourself to love. Chorus one more time. Give yourself to love, love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter. Give yourself to love, give yourself to love.
Thank you, Clint and Connie. So it's at this time that we go into our donation of love and light by taking a breath together and placing our hands on our heart, becoming more fully aware of that light and love within us, and allowing that to expand. And given that this is All Saints' Day, we may want to allow that light and love to expand to all those who grieve for loved ones lost this year. And so it is. So we will finish with a piece of music, please.
So this is kind of a light song. It's, I was thinking about Thanksgiving theme and Thanksgiving songs, and Connie and I kind of had a hard time with this one.
Well, it's not very spiritual.
Not very spiritual. Talk about pumpkin pie isn't spiritual?
Well, it's lively and it can raise your spirits.
Okay, I can go with that. And it is called Thanksgiving Day by Lydia Marie Child. Over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go. The horse goes away to carry the sleigh through wide and drifted snow. Over the river and through the woods, so how the wind does blow. It stings the toes and bites the nose as over the ground we go. Over the river and through the woods to have a first-rate play. Oh, hear the bells ring, ting-a-ling, hurrah for Thanksgiving Day. Over the river and through the woods, now grandmother's cap I spy. Hurrah for the fun is the pudding done, hurrah for pumpkin pie. Hurrah for the fun is the pudding done, hurrah for the pumpkin